I collapsed. My baby screamed, blood spread across my gown, and the Vampire King froze for the first time in his life. Because my blood wasn't red. It was silver. Silver like moonlight. Lucian fell to his knees beside me, shaking so badly his armor rattled. "No, no," he whispered. And when I looked up at him through blurred vision, I whispered the words that shattered both kings at once. "I remember." Lucian's breath stopped. His golden eyes cracked open like glass. "The Moon Council," he whispered. "You remember that night?" I nodded weakly. "Yes." The Vampire King stepped forward slowly, voice low and dangerous. "She remembers." The elder vampires gasped behind him, because memory was the key. Then the Vampire King leaned down, whispering like a curse. "Now she will awaken fully." My body burned. Pain turned into fire. My eyes flashed. Not gold, not black. Silver. And suddenly, I saw everything. The past, the betrayal, the wolves stealing me as a child, the Night Queen dying, and the name of the true villain. I whispered it. "Kyle." The Vampire King stiffened. Lucien's eyes narrowed. "Who is Kyle?" The Vampire King's face turned deadly. "My brother," he said. "The one who started the first Moon War." The room went silent. And then, a voice echoed from the shadows, soft, amused. "Hello, sister." A man stepped forward, pale, beautiful, deadly. His eyes glowed crimson like blood moons. "Kyle." He smiled at my baby. "The heir," he whispered. "Finally born." "My name is Elara Voss, a girl raised human, but never fully human." 8 months pregnant, I was dragged into the Alpha King's ballroom, where Lucian Ashbourne marked me in front of his entire pack and claimed my unborn child as his heir. But before my baby could even take his first breath, the Vampire King appeared. He called me the lost daughter of the Night Court. He called my child Prophecy. And he gave me an impossible choice. Come with him, or watch my alpha die in war. So I chose my child. The mate bond snapped. Lucian roared like the world was ending, and the Vampire King dragged me into his shadow realm. In the Night Court, I learned the truth. My mother was the Night Queen. My father was a wolf, and my baby carried both bloodlines. Then war exploded at the Vampire Gates. Lucien invaded the Night Court with an army. The Vampire King fought back with shadows, and I stood between two monsters until my blood awakened silver power. And now, Kyle had revealed himself. The real war was just beginning. Kyle stepped closer, smiling like the throne room belonged to him. His black coat flowed behind him like living smoke, and every candle in the hall flickered red. Lucien stood instantly, claws extending. The Vampire King's eyes narrowed like knives. But Kyle didn't look at either of them. He looked only at my child. "The heir belongs to me," Kyle whispered. My newborn's crescent mark glowed violently, and my baby cried. Not like a normal child, but like power itself screaming. My arms tightened around him. "No," I rasped. Kyle tilted his head, amused. "Oh, Elara, you still think you have choices." Then he lifted one finger. Dark magic surged like a wave. The air thickened. The runes on the throne pulsed, and the entire castle trembled as if it recognized him. Lucian lunged first. The alpha moved like a storm, but Kyle flicked his wrist, and Lucian was thrown across the hall like a broken weapon. The Vampire King attacked next. Shadows exploded from his body, the floor cracked under his power. Kyle laughed, and his darkness swallowed the Vampire King too. The Vampire King slammed into the pillar. Stone shattered, blood dripped from his mouth. I crawled backward, shaking. My gown was stained, my chest burned, my baby screamed. And then the prophecy voice returned again. Not from the throne, not from the walls, but from inside my skull. "Choose." I froze. Kyle smiled wider. "Yes," he whispered. "Choose." I looked at Lucien, broken, bleeding, still trying to stand. I looked at the Vampire King, wounded, still fighting to rise. And then I looked at Kyle, holding out his hand like a king demanding tribute. If I did nothing, both kings would die, and my child would be taken. That was when I realized something terrifying. Kyle didn't want me. He wanted the baby. Because my child wasn't just prophecy, he was a key to control both thrones. Kyle stepped forward again. His crimson eyes gleamed. "You were stolen from me," he whispered. "But now you've returned. With my weapon." Lucien roared. "You will not touch her." Kyle smiled slowly. "Oh, Alpha," he said. "I don't want her." He pointed at my baby. "I want him." That was when I realized the Vampire King wasn't the final enemy. The real monster was already inside the Night Court. Kyle raised his hand. Dark magic filled the room like poison fog. The newborn's crescent mark glowed brighter. The throne room shook. Then Kale did the unthinkable. He ripped my baby from my arms with magic. My body jerked forward. I screamed, "No!" My baby's cry echoed like thunder. His tiny hands reached for me. Lucien lunged, but Kyle threw him back again. The Alpha smashed into the wall. The Vampire King attacked again. But Kyle's darkness swallowed him too, and in seconds, I was on the floor, empty arms, empty heart. My breath came in broken sobs. Kyle held my son like a trophy. My child's crescent mark pulsed, silver, alive, and the prophecy voice whispered again, "Choose." My hands shook. Then I realized this prophecy wasn't asking me to choose between Lucien and the Vampire King. It was asking me to choose what kind of queen I would become, a queen who ran, or a queen who ruled. I wiped blood from my lip, and slowly, I stood. The entire hall went silent. Even Kale paused. Silver light began crawling up my arms, like moonlight turning into chains of power. Lucian's eyes widened. The Vampire King's face tightened. Kale's smile faded for the first time. "What?" he began, but I raised my hand. And I spoke a command that wasn't mine. It was my mother's voice, the Night Queen's voice. "Kneel." The word hit the throne room like an earthquake. Kale's knees slammed to the floor. The Vampire King dropped to one knee too. Lucien's wolf growled, and even he knelt. The entire castle bowed. My heart shattered, because it meant the truth was real. I wasn't human. I wasn't prey. I was royalty, and my blood commanded monsters. I stepped forward. Kyle struggled against the invisible force, his teeth bared. "You can't—" But he couldn't stand. My power held him down like the moon itself, crushing him. I walked to him, took my baby back. My newborn quieted instantly in my arms, like he recognized the queen holding him. Kyle's eyes burned with hatred. "You think you've won," he hissed. I stared at him. "No," I whispered. "I think I've finally woken up." That was when I realized the throne wasn't choosing my child. It was choosing me. Lucien rose slowly, breathing hard. "Elara," he whispered. His voice wasn't Alpha. It was broken love. The Vampire King stood too, wiping blood from his mouth. His eyes locked onto me, cold, but uncertain, like he wasn't sure if he was looking at a woman or a queen. I looked at Lucien first, the Alpha who loved me, the mate who broke for me, and I whispered, "I can't come with you." Lucien's face shattered. "No." Then I looked at the Vampire King. He watched me with unreadable eyes. Then I said the words that destroyed both kings. "I will take the throne." Silence. The Vampire King's breath stopped. Lucien's roar shook the castle, but it was done. Above my head, silver moonlight twisted into a crown. Not metal, not jewels. Blood. Royal blood. The crown formed like living prophecy. And the throne accepted me. The night court began to glow. The runes on the walls ignited. The castle itself pulsed like a living creature. Outside, the battle stopped instantly. Vampires and alpha warriors froze, because the realm felt it. A new queen had awakened. The war didn't begin when Lucien marked me. It began when the Night Court throne recognized my blood. Kyle snarled, his knees still pressed to stone. "You're not worthy," he spat. "You're half wolf filth." I stepped closer. Silver light flickered in my eyes. "And you," I whispered, "are a parasite, hiding behind prophecy." Kyle's smile returned. "You think the throne makes you strong?" He tilted his head. "The throne is a cage, Elara." My stomach tightened. Kyle's voice dropped lower. "It doesn't crown queens. It consumes them." The Vampire King stiffened. Lucien's eyes narrowed. I realized Kyle wasn't just after the baby, he was after the throne itself. Because if he could break me, he could claim my power. Kyle whispered softly, "You will destroy yourself trying to keep both worlds." And then he laughed, because no one can hold wolf and vampire together. That was when I realized this wasn't just a war for kingdoms, it was a war for balance. And if I failed, everything would burn. The Vampire King stepped forward. His voice was cold. "Kyle," he said, "you betrayed our mother." Kale smiled. "I saved our bloodline," he replied. Lucien growled. "What are you talking about?" Kale's eyes flickered toward Lucien. "Oh, Alpha, you still don't know the truth." Then he looked at me. "Elara," he whispered, "do you want to know why your mother died?" My heart clenched. Kale leaned closer. "She didn't die in battle. She died because she refused to choose." The throne room went silent. Kyle smiled wider. She tried to keep peace between vampires and wolves. And they tore her apart for it. The Vampire King's fists clenched, Lucien's jaw tightened, and I felt something cold in my chest, because suddenly I understood. My mother had been exactly like me, and her fate was warning me. That was when I realized my mother didn't die because she was weak. She died because she tried to keep both worlds. Kyle whispered, and now history repeats. Then Kyle snapped his fingers. The runes on the floor erupted. Dark chains shot from the stone. They wrapped around Lucien first, then the Vampire King. Both kings were yanked to their knees. Lucien roared. The Vampire King snarled. Kyle laughed. "You see," he said, "even kings kneel when I command the prophecy." My baby cried again, and the crescent mark burned like fire. Kyle's eyes locked on the mark. His voice trembled with obsession. "Give him to me," he whispered, "and I will spare them." My heart stopped. Lucien struggled. "Elara, don't." The Vampire King's voice was sharp. "Do not listen to him." Kyle smiled. "You want them alive?" he whispered. "Then choose." The prophecy voice returned again. "Choose." My breath shook. This was the same cruel game. But now Kyle controlled the board. I looked at Lucien. His golden eyes pleaded. I looked at the Vampire King. His face was hard, but his gaze held something else. Fear. Not fear of Kyle. Fear of losing me. Kyle leaned forward. "Hand me the heir," he whispered, "and the war ends." Then he added softly, "Or keep him, and watch both kings die." That was when I realized Kyle wasn't trying to steal my child. He was trying to force me into becoming my mother, a queen who would break. I closed my eyes, and for a moment, I heard my mother's scream again. I saw the burning castle. I saw blood on marble. I saw wolves and vampires ripping her apart. Then I opened my eyes, and I made my decision, not as mate, not as daughter, not as human, as queen. I lifted my baby higher, and I whispered, "You want the heir?" Kyle smiled. "Yes." I took one step forward, then another. Kyle's smile widened, but then I turned my baby's crescent mark toward the throne and I whispered, "Wake." The throne room exploded with silver light. The runes ignited. The walls shook. Kyle's eyes widened. "What are you doing?" The prophecy voice screamed inside my skull. "Accept." My veins burned. The crown above my head flared. And suddenly, the entire night court answered me. Not the vampires, not the wolves, the realm itself. Kyle screamed as silver chains wrapped around him. The chains pulled him backward, pinned him to the floor. Lucien's chains shattered. The Vampire King's chains shattered. Both kings rose instantly. Kyle struggled, roaring like an animal. "You can't imprison me." I stepped closer. My voice dropped. "I'm not imprisoning you," I whispered. "I'm judging you." Then I raised my hand, and silver fire struck Kyle's chest. Kyle screamed. His body convulsed, his skin cracked like glass, and beneath it, something monstrous showed. Not vampire, not wolf, something twisted, something that had fed on war too long. Lucien stared. The Vampire King's eyes narrowed. Kyle laughed through pain. "You think killing me ends prophecy?" he spat. "It begins it!" Then he whispered, "The heir will destroy you." My stomach twisted. Kyle's eyes locked on my baby. "Because he will grow." and he will choose one bloodline. And when he does, the other kingdom will burn. The Vampire King stiffened. Lucien's jaw clenched. My baby's crescent mark pulsed, and I realized Kyle was right. If my child chose one side, the other would never forgive, so the war would never truly end, unless I did something impossible, unless I created a third throne, a throne that belonged to both. Lucien stepped toward me. "Elara," he whispered, "come with me. Let's leave this place." The Vampire King's voice cut in. "No," he said, "she belongs here." Both kings turned toward each other, the air filled with rage again, and my heart sank, because even now, they couldn't stop. Even after Kyle revealed himself, they still wanted to claim me, to pull me apart, and suddenly, I understood the truth. Kyle wasn't the only villain. The kingdoms themselves were. The hunger, the pride, the obsession. That was the curse. Kyle smiled weakly from the floor. "Look at them," he whispered. "They will never stop fighting over you." Lucien growled. The Vampire King's eyes darkened. Kyle laughed. "And you think you can keep both worlds?" He coughed blood. "You will break." The prophecy voice whispered again. "Choose." I stared at Lucien, then at the Vampire King, then down at my baby. And I whispered, "No." Both kings froze. I lifted my chin. "I will not choose between them." Lucien's eyes widened. The Vampire King's face tightened. Kyle laughed again. "You can't." I raised my hand, and silver light wrapped around my baby, then around Lucien, then around the Vampire King. The room shook. The throne screamed in power. The castle trembled like it was alive. The vampires outside fell to their knees. The alpha warriors outside froze, because every creature felt it. The birth of something new. A third crown. I spoke the words like prophecy itself. My child will not belong to one throne. He will belong to both. And I will be the bridge. Lucien stepped forward. "Elara, what are you doing?" My voice broke. "I'm ending the war." The Vampire King's eyes narrowed. "How?" I looked at the throne, and I whispered, "By claiming both kingdoms." Kyle's laughter died. Lucien's breath stopped. The Vampire King's face went pale, because they understood what I meant. A queen of wolves and vampires. A queen no one could control. A queen who would unite what prophecy tried to destroy. Kale screamed, "No! The prophecy—" I raised my hand, and the silver crown above my head shattered, not into dust, into two crowns. One formed of silver moonlight, one formed of golden fire. The vampire crown, the alpha crown. Both floated above my head. Then they fused together, and the new crown formed, a crown of twilight, half moon, half flame. The room erupted in power. Kyle screamed as the chains tightened, his body cracked, and finally... Kyle's crimson eyes widened in terror. "No, no!" I stepped closer. "You started the Moon War," I whispered, "so I will end it." Then I touched his forehead, and I spoke the final judgment. "Exile!" The throne roared. Kyle's body turned into smoke, screaming smoke, and then he vanished. Gone. Not dead. Not free. Banished into the void between realms, a prison worse than death. The entire night court went silent. Lucien stared at me like I was no longer human. The Vampire King stared like he was seeing his mother reborn. And I realized I had done the impossible. I had defeated Kyle. But now, I had become something far more dangerous. A queen who held both bloodlines. The battle outside stopped completely. The vampire soldiers lowered their weapons. The alpha warriors froze in shock, because the realm itself had changed. The air smelled different, not like war, like balance. Lucien stepped toward me slowly, his voice cracked. "Elara." I looked at him. The bond between us pulsed again. Not broken, not healed, rewritten. And then the Vampire King stepped closer too, his voice low. "Sister." I flinched at the word because it wasn't romantic, it was truth. He wasn't my lover, he wasn't my captor, he was my blood, and Lucien wasn't just my mate, he was my fate. 2 worlds, 2 kings, and 1 queen standing between them. Lucien dropped to one knee, not forced, not commanded. He bowed willingly. "My queen," he whispered. The vampire king did the same, his head lowered. "My night queen." The vampires gasped. The wolves outside howled because kings were kneeling, and the realm had chosen its ruler. I held my child tighter, and I whispered, "This war ends now." Then I stepped onto the throne, not as prisoner, not as mate, not as pawn, as queen. The throne accepted me, and the night court glowed like moonlight reborn. Lucienne rose and stepped beside me. Not behind, beside. The vampire king stood on my other side, and for the first time, wolves and vampires stood in the same hall without killing each other. Not because they wanted peace, because they feared the queen who commanded them, because I wasn't human anymore. I was the bloodline they tried to bury. The Night Queen's daughter, the Alpha's mate, the mother of the heir, the woman prophecy couldn't control. And my child, my son, rested against my chest. His crescent mark pulsed softly, not violent, not cursed. Alive, balanced. Then I looked down at him, and I whispered, "You will never be a weapon. You will be a king who unites what monsters destroyed." Lucienne's hand touched mine, warm. The vampire king's hand touched my shoulder, cold. And I realized I had kept both worlds, not by choosing love, not by choosing eternity, but by choosing power, because the only way to survive monsters is to become their queen. The Moon War didn't begin when the Alpha marked me. It began the moment I stopped being human and claimed both thrones with blood. So tell me, if you were holding a newborn prophecy child and two kings were ready to burn the world for you, would you choose the Alpha's love or the Vampire King's eternity? Or would you do what I did and take both crowns? Comment below. And if you want more dark supernatural stories of vampire kings, alpha mates, and cursed bloodlines, like, subscribe, and join Gothic Gems. Because once a queen awakens, there is no going back.